In the same vein, I wanted to introduce a new staff person really quick in the office of the Dean of Students, and that is Kelsey McGarity. So Kelsey is our new hardship withdrawal coordinator. And so we will talk a little bit about the hardship withdrawal process a little bit today, but wanted to make sure that you see Kelsey's smiling face. And near and dear to your heart, Kelsey joins us from Georgia State, where she was an academic advisor. So she can definitely relate. So Kelsey, thank you for popping on for a second. So you have two documents that were shared with you, and really a third, which is the Dean of Students page as well. And they involve reports. The first one, Responding to Students' Need, is a document that was created by our Office of Student Conduct and Academic Integrity and our Campus Care and Outreach team. The second is the Reporting Incidents of Concern. That's a document that my office generated primarily because we got a lot of questions about policies related. One of the things that I would like to share with this group is there's an easier way to think about reporting incidents of concern, and that is looking at our two primary referral processes. And that is our Campus Care and Outreach team report form, and that is our interpersonal violence report form. All the other things that you see on these two documents, representatives are on both of these reports, not the IPV, but particularly the Campus Care and Outreach team form. So I encourage you as advisors to have the information contained on these documents readily available. I encourage you to review it as you're able. But if you get one of those live, hot stressors of a student report, know that in actuality, you really just need to know the two forms. If it involves anything that hints to interpersonal violence, use the IPV report form. And if it's anything else, you can use the Campus Care and Outreach team form. And I tell you that because there is a distribution list set up with both of those reports. But in particular, the Campus Care and Outreach team report, Campus Police is on there, Counseling and Psychiatry is on there, Fraternity and Sorority Life is on there, Student Disability Resource Center is on there. So whenever one of those reports come in, they are naturally centralized in the Campus Care and Outreach team. But if there is an immediate need, for anything else, there are representatives from campus departments that will see it immediately when that report comes through. So that's why I try to make this as easy as possible. And I saw, Jan, were you trying to ask a question? Nope, just coming on. Okay, not a problem. So let's talk a little bit about what happens when those report forms come in. And why don't I start with the Campus Care and Outreach report. So when that lands, there are multiple offices that are looking at it, and if there is an immediate need to intervene, they will do so. But they land in the Campus Care and Outreach team, which is typically Austin LaForest. It's evaluated for the need for immediate supportive measures. That is, is this one where we need immediate police intervention? Is it one where we need immediate counseling and psychiatry intervention? Or is it one where we just need to do a general welfare check? And so at that point in time, it'll be determined if there needs to be a light or what we call a soft intervention, which is just Austin or one of the other team members giving that student a call. Hey, how are you doing? We would love to have you come in. Let's sit and talk. Or it could be one where we're like, you need to come in. We need to chat with you. In all those cases, there's a case management process which involves the entire team, and that team has representatives from counseling and psychiatry, police, there's a faculty representative, that sit down and kind of talk about where we are, what needs to occur, what can we do to support that student. I need to be open and transparent with you. That campus care and outreach team cannot compel or mandate or force a student to come meet with them. And that's important to know, because you as academic advisors may be in a situation where you're really worried about a student, and you might submit a campus care and outreach team report, and you may feel, well, nothing happened. If there is a situation outside immediate threat to self, because immediate threat to self will pull in the police for intervention, and we do that quite a bit in terms of involuntary committals to a hospital. But if it's not that immediate threat to self or others, you may feel like, I submitted this care team report and I don't feel like anything's happened. And that could be the case in a situation where a student just absolutely refuses to pick up the phone, or respond to a text, or meet. And I'm sure there are going to be some questions, so I'm happy to field those after this, but also wanted to talk a little bit about that interpersonal violence report form. And so you are academic advisors. You are deemed, for the purposes of the law, mandatory reporters. So if a student were to disclose any act of sexual violence, sexual assault, dating violence, stalking to you have to report it. Now, here's the interesting part for you. So as a mandatory reporter, I always give this advice. Y'all are all very smart people. Y'all are all in these jobs because you care about students, and you want to be involved in helping them find success. And I have to trust, as the interim University Title IX coordinator, I have to trust your independent judgment to know how a conversation is going. If you feel a student is about to disclose something to you that may be involving interpersonal violence, my advice is to pause. And that is, if someone's coming with a story that says, hey, I'm really struggling, I've had this issue with my boyfriend, he continues to get mad, what you need to be able to say is, listen, one thing that I am happy to hear what you have to say, and I'm happy to help in any way possible, but do know that if you disclose this to me, I'm going to have to tell somebody. Now, if you have a situation that you don't want the university to know about, let me know, and I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call SAVIP right now. And because we do have confidential resources on campus, so a student can disclose to anyone in student health services, whether that be SAVIP, whether that be counseling, whether that be psychiatry. So you need to be able to have that knowledge of, hey, if this is something you don't want the university to know about it, let me know. I'll pick up the phone, or if it's an in-person meeting, I will walk you over to student health services right now, and they will pick you up from there. So that's number one, your role as mandatory reporter. But if they do disclose, then you do have to go on and submit that interpersonal violence report. And there's two ways that goes. So there's going to be a time, there's no way that you're going to be able to avoid a time where a student comes to you and may disclose something that happened years ago. That is so common with our traditionally aged college students, where they're like, I was raped 3 years ago. And then you have to stop and say, hey, I'm a mandatory reporter. I've got to report that. Do you need any supportive services from the university? And many times they're going to say no. I've dealt with that, or I'm in treatment right now. So that is a mandatory report where the student doesn't want services. So in that case, in your report, you would write, in a meeting with the student disclosed a past incident, student does not need any services. I advise them of how they could contact SAVIP if they wanted to. In that case, you're not obligated to put that student's name in there. You can, if there is any hint that they may want. And this happens a lot. Kelsey, who you just saw, who's our hardship with coordinator, this happens quite a bit in our hardship withdrawal reports, and there are a lot of, as a mandatory reporter, Kelsey or Manny Bidinger in our office as well will submit that IPV report of, hey, this student disclosed this, it's in the past, they don't need anything. But the second one is it could be an area of IPV that's ongoing, and the student could come in and say, hey, can you tell me how to withdraw because I can't stop my partner from punching me, and your heart is going to drop, and you are going to want to make sure that that student is connected to services, and that's where you would file the IPV report. And in the same manner that the care and outreach form has a distribution list, so does the IPV report that comes in, and it lands, and basically two things are going to occur. The first one is it's going to be evaluated to see if there are immediate supportive measures. So one of the things that you have to put on that report is, does the student want to speak to a confidential resource? And that's SAVIP at USC. If that's the case, then SAVIP will immediately pick up the phone and contact that student and explain the whole process to them. You can have the university, you can be involved with an investigation from the university, you can be involved with an investigation from the police, or if you just need supportive services, if you just need to change a class or communicate with a faculty member, then SAVIP can take care of that. If that information is not known or the student says no, then that report lands with Aaron Kitchell in the Office of Student Conduct. And they've been designated within our process to take care of supportive measures. And hopefully many of y'all know Erin and her team. They're wonderful. They're going to pick up the phone, call the student, ask them how they're doing, respond in a very trauma-informed manner of making sure they're okay, and then asking, do you need anything? Do you need any supportive services? And from there, they'll figure out, after we've kind of processed it a little bit, if they want to file a formal investigation. And if that were the case, that would go to HR. We also have, under our current Title IX policy, the ability for an informal resolution, which is through mediation, that Erin and her team do as well. So that's kind of the way those things go. So those are the two primary reporting schemes, but I also understand, because I work in this space so readily, that I may have glossed over a number of things that you have questions about. You may also have some scenarios that you've encountered that you seek more specific advice on. So at that point in time, I'll open myself up for questions.
Thank you. So if anybody has questions and wants to jump on, please do that. Type them in. And Mark, just for clarification, the campus care and concern team formerly was BIT, or that
That's
some of us
correct.
might remember that.
Yeah.
Okay.
The artist formerly known as BIT.
Okay.
And I think that's an important designation for you to know too. The reason it was formerly called the Behavioral Intervention Team, which means that there was some threat analysis occurring, and in reality, there is a threat assessment committee for the university that is run through our Division of Law Enforcement and Safety. And in reality, the phrase campus care and outreach is much more accurate reflection of what they do. So I see the question that came in of SAVIP. Yeah, that's correct. SAVIP is Sexual Assault, Violence, Intervention and Prevention Office. It is an office within Student Health Services. Shannon Nix oversees that office. They are our advocates on campus. They do a tremendous amount of education, but they also work with individuals who have experienced interpersonal violence. And many times that's the only intervention that the student wants, is to meet with this person. They can connect them with counseling and psychiatry. They can connect them with outside services. We have a lot of students that don't feel comfortable with the university having inner knowledge. So we have great connections with Sexual Trauma Services of the Midlands, South Carolina RAIN, and other. Skidvasa as well is another one that connect them. Got it. Sorry. So that's SAVIP. So y'all have to have other questions.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the nature of your work. I know the extent of your relationships with students and the crucial role that you play in their academic journey. And I really am being transparent here. I will answer whatever it is you may have.
I think also, while we have Kelsey here, if there's anything you want to say or she wants to say about hardship withdrawal specifically, because we do get that question a lot from advisors about hardship withdrawal. So I'm going to speak for other advisors. If anybody wants, or Kelsey, if you want to speak to give us a little bit of information about what you do and your role with the hardship withdrawal, that would be great.
And Kelsey, I'm going to voluntold you. We would love to have you come present for us in the fall, if you would be willing, because there's always a lot of questions about hardship withdrawal. And we're so happy to finally have a permanent person here.
Well, and I can do two things. One, Kelsey, being the remarkable team player, very shortly after she got here and established her capacity, we had the resignation of one of our employees. So Kelsey is out actually handling temporary conditions and injuries as well. So she's caring a lot. We've got the position description. I do want, before Kelsey talks a little bit about hardship withdrawal, I see the question from Sam. And he says, if a student says they want to talk to a confidential resource with SAVIP, is it best if SAVIP reaches out to the student after the report is filed, or should the student call SAVIP directly? Again, remember that you are a mandatory reporter, so you've got to file that report. And I think it's perfectly fine. There is nothing wrong at all if a student is in your office and they are in need, for you to pick up the phone with the student in your office and call SAVIP and say, hey, I'm with a student. Can they walk over right now, or can y'all connect with this student via Teams call if you're meeting with the student remotely? And then after that, you would still submit that IPV report because you're a mandatory reporter. But that's how I would advise you to handle that. And the question from Lori came in of, what do you wish more faculty and instructors knew about these services? I would say I wish that they could meet with the SAVIP folks. I mean, they're phenomenal. And I don't know how many of you have met with their staff. Shannon Nix, Carol Ann, Jason, they're wonderful people who work diligently every day. The reality is there's no perfect process or system, and there's definitely criticism of our counseling services. I know a lot of this, we've done a large-scale survey through our outside consultants around Title IX issues that has about 1,300 responses right now. So when I say there are some critical responses about the availability of counseling services, but SAVIP, they do a really good job. And that survey revealed a lot of positive interactions. So I really wish that our faculty knew and understood better. They have a role that they don't get to talk about. They're confidential. they're confidential employees. So I am glad to see that Jane is having the folks. When you do, please tell them how much you appreciate the role that they have. They have remarkable hearts. So with that, and kind of a dearth of questions at the moment, I'll let Kelsey just do a really brief introduction about hardship withdrawal. And it makes me laugh because Kelsey is literally 2 offices right there, and yet we're looking at each other on screen. So go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you, Mark, and thanks for having me and for your interest in the hardship withdrawal process. So as the withdrawal coordinator, I oversee the withdrawal process of a student who wants to withdraw from the university. Right now we're looking at students more so withdrawing, starting in the fall semester. And then obviously the second part of it is the hardship withdrawal process, which for the most part is a retroactive process or a process that happens within the withdrawal fail period of the semester. So the hardship withdrawal process is obviously different than a regular withdrawal in the fact that there has to be a hardship occurring in that semester that warrants a hardship withdrawal. So the biggest thing I will say is that it is not a guaranteed process. Even students, if they have the worst story in the world, I would say please don't guarantee them a hardship withdrawal. If I could ask anything, we try to be as transparent as possible on our website about what meets a hardship and what does not meet a hardship. As part of the criteria for a hardship withdrawal. But I would say that one of the biggest things that we work with students is trying to make sure as they're writing their statements and filling out their application and putting together their documentation is sometimes managing those expectations. And so it's hard if I have somebody else telling them, oh yes, it'll get approved, no problem, and they haven't actually talked with us and gone through the process of, I can ask for anything, just please don't guarantee it. We'll certainly work with students and all of that, but making sure the student is meeting the criteria for the hardship withdrawal is the first and foremost. So I think the biggest thing, like I said, we try to be as transparent as possible on our website about what meets a criteria for hardship and what doesn't. So those things, deaths in the family, new medical or mental health diagnosis, hospitalizations, things like that, certainly meet the criteria for a hardship. And like I said, the website is the best place to point them into our office. We're happy to go over a student's hardship to see if they meet the criteria or not. And basically to start the process, if you meet with a student and you feel like they are a possible candidate for a hardship withdrawal, what I would recommend, you can either send them to the website to fill out the hardship withdrawal application. And what we do is we preliminary review that application to see if it meets a hardship withdrawal. If it doesn't, we'll reach out to them and let them know. But if it does, then we'll start that process and walk them through it. Or if they're unsure and don't want to go start the application process, we're more than happy to talk them through it as well. So whichever way, if you just want to send them to the application, have them fill that out, or if you just want to send me an email or a Navigate alert with their information, that is fine as well. I know I've gotten quite a few alerts from the advising office, and that's been great. And one last thing I will say kind of as an overview is that we do have a partial and a full hardship withdrawal. The difference between the two is the partial hardship withdrawal is just for one or some of the classes, whereas the full is the whole semester. I will say that the partial withdrawals are only granted in very exceptional circumstances, and that is outside of academic rigor. So if a student is stating that they're able to pass most of their classes except one or a few, based on the fact that the class was different, the professor wasn't willing to work with them, or those kinds of things, that can be the exception to, that might not be approved, even though they might have had some other hardships. So just know that the criteria for a full and a partial withdrawal, those are different. So if you are working with a student and they want partial, just know that that isn't approved as frequently, and the criteria is different than a full hardship withdrawal. So I will say those are some of the caveats and frequent questions that we get from students. But again, there's a lot more to it. So yes, I would be happy to do more of a training in the fall if that's works for you all. But any general questions or anything else I could answer at the moment?
Just to piggyback on some of the things that you and Mark have both said, In the fall, we're going to have Dr. Sarah Wright and Shannon Nix. Sarah Wright is in the Counseling Center and Shannon Nix is in SAVIP. We're going to have kind of like a two-part series where we do trauma-informed advising will be the first part, and then the second part is going to be more focused on SAVIP, their office, the process of reporting and all of that. So we're really excited about that. So you will get those people in front of your face sooner rather than later.
Yeah, with that, Sarah's book just came out over the summer, Redefining Trauma, Understanding and Coping with a Cortisone Brain. Sarah is hilarious, and I'm so glad that she'll be talking to y'all. She's fantastic, as is Shannon. You do always have to give a trigger warning with Sarah. She's a licensed sex therapist, so be aware that she's very comfortable saying things that other people are not comfortable with. So, but that's great. That's a great training. And Kelsey, we're so glad that you are here. And one of the things that I wanted to share before we close, now again, if there are other questions, we're happy to address those. But you know, those of you who have been here for more than 3 years would understand this fact. So I'm the first Dean of Students independent. So Dennis Pruitt carried that title for about 30 years. And so my office and myself have only been here for 3 years. And I share that with you because we are meant to be an office that people call with questions. And, you know, underneath, whether it be care team, conduct, disability, SAPE, that's substance abuse prevention and education. If you have any questions, just pick up the phone and call our general line. Mandy Bidinger, who some of you know, is based on all the project management that she's had to do for me over 3 years, is as aware of resources as anybody. The only exception being our ombudsman, which is Lisa Gerald, because Lisa Gerald knows everything and everybody. But we're here. You know, if you have a situation that you're struggling with, pick up the phone and call, and we'll point you in the right direction and do anything that we can to help. And that could be anything. You know, for example, you could have a student that self-discloses a substance abuse issue but doesn't want the university to know about it. And if that's the case, we would get them connected to SAPE and have them go through Screen U, which is an app that they can do on their phone that helps elevate the level of risk and suggest resources after that. Students can also enter our basics program voluntarily, you know, without getting in trouble. I mean, we have resources for students. We know that y'all are on the front line with students. I am fully aware that each person on this call wants the very best. So if there's any way that Kelsey or myself or Mandy from our office can be of support or assistance to you, please just let us know. We'd be happy to do so. And thank you for having us today.
Does anybody have any questions before we finish up? Any last parting questions? Oh, the form isn't open. Okay, I'm opening it. Sorry.
All right, y'all take care. Have a great week. Have a happy Monday. Get used to the heat. It's coming. All right, hope to see y'all around campus.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good one.